Welcome, everybody, to our podcast, Make Your Mind Your Best Ally. So, as always, I have my friend and co-host, Dr. Anne-Marie Balkansky, and myself, Martha Garzon, former professional tennis player, former teaching coach, and now I just do online coaching. And I'm just going to let Anne-Marie introduce herself.
Medical doctor, certified clinical hypnotherapist, but basically a mind coach.
Cool. All right. So our friend in Fort Lauderdale, Coach Mike Bennett, sent us a few questions. And we could write a book about each question that he sent.
Nice.
But let's see if we can tackle at least 4 of those questions. So the first one, how can we play every point with the same level of focus, regardless of whether we win the point or lose it?
Big question.
A lot to unload there.
Because we're talking about focus, right? And so let's define focus first. You can consider focus kind of like a flashlight. Your flashlight, you can shine it 100% upon something. And that's all the focus you have, 100% flashlight shining. But if you focus your attention on 2 things, you're splitting up your light. So you have 50%, so your light is dim, and then you have another 50% on another thing. So your light is dim on both of the objects that you're focusing on. So your attention is going to be limited. That's why multitasking,
Uh-huh.
So the thing that we are unaware that we're focusing on, though, is your thoughts. If you're not in the game, if you're not present, you're not putting your focus on what it is you need to do next.
Right.
And so if you're thinking about maybe what you did 2 minutes ago or a minute ago,
where I was
you're
just say that the point that you just lost, which means
exactly.
something that leads to something.
Exactly. Then you're not present and you're not focused. And so your light is dim. And, so focus is something that it's a trained skill. It's not something that we are born with. I mean, that's why I believe highly, just had a call earlier. I mean, ADHD attention is just we're so distracted by so many things, including our voice. So your voice is probably the biggest distractor. So I would say, how do we bounce back right away? Is you got to train yourself on focusing techniques. I'm big on meditation.
Okay.
And I mean, playing tennis is huge. I consider sports meditation because you're present. You have to be present. But if you can strengthen that focus exercise by that focus muscle, basically, by maybe breathing or sitting in the morning and just see where your attention goes, it will help you better to bounce back quicker.
Okay.
So it's about, again, being aware of where you're focusing your attention in the first place, but we're not aware and we have to catch ourselves. So if you're not catching yourself, then you're kind of, you're not getting back in the game.
Yeah.
So it is another kind of training that one would have to do in order to make sure that you're able to kind of bounce back quickly. So it's not really a quick answer.
Like I said, we could write a book on all each of these questions.
For sure.
But what I'm hearing basically is like, if you just focus on one thing, then you're going to do that one thing right, which makes so much sense. And one of the typical examples is when people have a winner, a put away, and they have so many choices in their heads that they run out of time, basically, and they end up losing the point. And one thing I heard one time from a really, really good coach was that people in the top 100 only see one choice when they have a put away. People below the top 100, they see a million choices. I call it the kid in the candy store problem,
Yeah.
So that goes back to what you're saying. If you just practice, we practice enough. We know what high percentage shots and what if you have an open court, then that's the ideal and the logical place to do it. So don't deviate basically from what you know. Don't second guess yourself. Focus on what you're doing rather than seeing yourself winning the point and shaking hands and winning the match and getting the trophy and like getting ahead.
Yes.
So anyway.
to add to that, because I was thinking like, so the next step, once you're able to really hone in on your focus and being able to learn how to focus on one thing, I mean, we have to let go of those thoughts, right? So if you are focusing on 2 things, theoretically, or 3 things, you got to ask yourself which one, and we have to ask ourselves very quickly, like, is this serving us? Like, is this thought serving us? And at that very moment, maybe analyzing how you, you know, how you hit it, how you hit the ball, just like, I don't know, or how you served not long ago,
right,
is not going to help you at that very moment, because you just got to go.
Yeah.
So it's letting go. And,
right.
And so the techniques you can do with that, I mean, it's just literally, you know, like the clouds. So some of the techniques I'll use with my clients is, I mean, imagine just, because you don't want to get mad at yourself. You don't want to get angry at yourself that you're unable to not focus on something, because that just makes things worse. Because now we're adding another piece to the problem of focusing your attention.
Right.
So you just want to be like, okay, imagine if you could throw that thought, because it doesn't serve you right now, into like a treasure box or in, you know, like a passing cloud, and quickly do that and just focus on what you need to do at that moment that serves you.
Okay. So the second question that Mike has for us is, what are some between point rituals? So we're talking about not a lot of time between to do the ritual. How to adjust to, you know, in between big points after a labor intensive point, in something where the player was flat footed. So again, we don't have that much time. So how do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to train yourself to come back quick, to reset.
Yeah.
I think that's the best word I can use, where you just reset. And the more honed in your rituals are, the quicker you're going to be able to reset. The better you're able to focus, the better you're able to let go. That probably is one of the most important things, letting go. Then the quicker you're able to get back into the game. So it's going to be unique for everybody. The ritual that they use, you know, it's if you catch yourself, and that's actually, I have to even correct that. The hardest part is probably catching yourself, especially if you're exhausted, especially if you already had this labor intensive match and you're just like, you know, you already have so many thoughts going on and exhausted. So finding something that's simple, like catch your breath. You have to catch yourself first and foremost, that either if you're expending any energy on excessive thoughts or overthinking something, just getting in your head in general. So take a big breath, one big breath, belly breath. And I mean, like, just like reset. I mean, breath is such a powerful thing for me. So I always incorporate the breath with all my clients. So if you just take a nice recentering breath and come back and let go, I mean, those are going to be the main things, letting go of anything that would have gotten in the way. Some other, you know, maybe things I think you mentioned before about like plucking the strings or something.
Yeah,
but will you have time, you know, and that's the thing, like, what can you really do if you just, it has to be so quick, and the only thing you can think about is the breath.
And see, I want to add my 2 cents to that. Respect the fact that this is your time. You get to choose how much time you have in between points, and you don't want to skip that ritual. First of all, you want to build it. And second, you want to give yourself those few seconds to snap out of it, basically. Do not continue on that path where, like, oh my God, I lost. And then you start looking at, I'm down 4-2 and I was up this and whatever. Just respect the fact that you need a minute for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's catching that you're even doing that. You know, that is probably the most important thing, because we don't realize we're doing it when we're doing it.
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
like
the
you're
hardest
hypnotized.
problem. Yeah, exactly. You are hypnotized with your thoughts.
Right.
You're thinking about them. And then, I mean, everybody has experienced that, where we will have this whole stream of thoughts. And it's like traveling from Florida to California. We get to California, you're like, how do we get there? Like, you know, you don't even realize all the things you thought about. But when you're in the game, it's such precious time, such precious moments that you're losing. And so it really is a training of the mind that has to happen. And those rituals, training the rituals and honing them in even better, and then finding what works for you, either that be the breath and holding that intention to do that, so that you can honor to the subconscious mind more than anything, okay, when I do this, this is what will happen. Okay, when I take a big breath, recentering myself, going back to that anchor and trigger that I spoke about before, using that word or something to just kind of bring you back, you know, to reset yourself as quickly as possible.
Cool. All right. Third question. How can we learn to accept every point or match as neither good or bad, but only as data to help us improve? It's a huge question.
It is. We can write a book on this one because it's about perception. It's a label, right? Mm-hmm. Good, bad is a label of meaning. There's meaning is dependent upon you. You know? I mean, I just thought about like our dollar bill. Like, you know, if you look at a dollar bill, it says this is a note and it's defined by our government, you know, of the value that it has. But otherwise, if you go to another country, it's just a piece of paper.
Right.
Rip it up. It has no meaning.
Oh, that's very good. Oh, that's why she's a doctor.
So like good, bad, you're going to determine what that meaning is. But when it comes to something that's bad, I mean, it doesn't serve anybody to really just think about or to ponder over something being bad. It's a lesson. And so if you lose or don't do well or you don't play a good match, then just seeing it as a lesson is the most important thing. And you can apply that skill to every area of your life, everywhere. The example that it's an old Chinese philosophy, I believe, but it's a story about a farmer who, you know, is tilling the soil or something, and his son is riding a horse and falls down and breaks his leg. And the neighbors are like, oh my God, that's so horrible. That's so bad. I can't believe that happened. And then, you know, a little bit later, they're you know, recruiting for the military, and they come to his house and they see that he's injured, and they're like, oh, we can't take you because you're injured. And so then everybody's like, oh, good for him. That's such a good thing that he injured himself,
funny.
You know?
That's true.
So it's like you can't really know if something's good or if something's bad. Like we really don't know. We can just we can just trust that something may come out of this that may be good, especially if you learned something from the experience.
It's an experience. Yeah, right. And what I would add from my personal experience is you're not a good person or a bad person because you won or because you lose. And both of them apply. It doesn't make you a good person if you win. You know, if you look up to the people that always win the tournaments or the people that always beat you, you're looking at the player, you're not looking at the person. So to understand that this is a sport and this is life and this is something you do as an instrument that you pick up or you drop and that's it. It has nothing to do with your value as a person. Right?
Yeah, I love that because we're putting meaning to what a bad person would be then, right?
Yeah,
and that's like society does that, right? We say, oh, a good person has you know, looks a certain way, or a good person has, you know, this many cars or this kind of house or makes this much money. You know, like we're putting definition to what being bad or being a good person is, but you know, it's about intention in the end. I mean, and this is something that like my parents especially will do. They'll be so concerned with, oh, am I a good parent or a bad parent? Because like, you know, maybe they're doing work with me and they're feeling guilty about spending time with me. And I'm like, the mere fact that you're even concerned about being a bad parent means you're a good parent. You know?
That's smart.
It's perspective. Like, you know, you're human and we're all human and we're just learning lessons in this experience. And, you know, sports is definitely one of the biggest playgrounds that you can have so much fun in.
Yeah.
And you can learn so much from, I mean, professional sports players. I mean, boy, it's probably, you learn as many lessons as having kids, I'm sure.
Yeah. And even in professional sports, it is a playground, like what you said. Yep. It is what it is. You know, it's something that you get to experience and that's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to the last question. What are some pre-match and night before visualizations of good point setups, solid strokes, and positive attitude?
And Coach Mike, you already answered it.
Right. You have the answer right there.
Good strokes. Good. You know, you're going to want to, well, first of all, imagery work is, man, it's such a powerful tool that people don't realize. And the reason why is because the subconscious mind, and this is something I don't think I've talked about yet on this podcast, but we have two minds. We have the thinking, analytical, conscious mind, and then we have the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is such a big part of who we are. And it does not know the difference between real or fake. And what I mean by that, like, let's say, you know, you all listening out there, if you close your eyes and you think about a sour tasting lemon right now and really just think about
to water.
you think about just taking a big bite and like, you know, sucking on this big sour tasting lemon. I'm already, my mouth is already watery because I'm creating a physiological reaction from thinking about it. And it just, the image pops on my mind because my body is reacting as though it's already happening. It doesn't know the difference.
Oh, okay.
And so this kind of goes back to, you know, the example with like PTSD and people that do have past trauma that they relive over and over and over because they're replaying the images in their mind and the body is literally reacting as though they're going through that trauma again and again and again. And so it's hugely beneficial that you use positive images, that use positive, you know, that you're doing things and bring the sensory, bring the feeling. How does it feel serving or hitting, and how does it feel, you know, out on the court? How does the wind feel? Like all those aspects.
Cool. Yeah. And so basically, can you the more senses that you can recruit, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Everybody's mind works differently. Like for me, I'm not a very visual person. Like I've worked with people where they experience emotions in colors, you know, you get mad, you see red,
wow.
You get sad, you see black, you know,
wow.
and for me though, I don't really visualize so much. Like I don't have so much detail when I visualize things. It's a feeling as though it's there. And so for me, things come through as a feeling as though it's there, or a very tactile experience. So when I'm doing visual work, I'm really putting myself in there and just feeling how my body feels. And like if I think about holding a racket, I can feel it in my hand, you know, like
oh yeah, sense. That's interesting. Yeah. I'm very visual. I like to see, and maybe it comes from my OCD, but I love to see where I'm gonna be standing. I love to see how, you know, how it's gonna look when I finish the point. And it really does take me to another place. It's like I'm creating my reality and I'm enjoying and I'm actually hearing, you know, how the ball sounds on my strings and how it sounds when it, you know, it hits the chord. You know, there's so many things that you can experience with this beautiful sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're good with detail visually.
Yeah,
I do know that about you. So you detail visual, like for me, it's just, and that's there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how our mind works. I sense and feel things very much. But there was a very interesting research, and this is part of your practice, right? You can really think about how, how like Coach Mike was telling us, like how you were serving, how you were playing in a match, and think about all the positive things of what you did right. And it's kind of like they took two groups. They took piano players. They weren't piano players just yet, but they basically said, okay, one group, we're going to teach you how to play piano, but we're just going to have you visualize the keys. And we're going to show you images, and you're just going to run through that visual work of how to play a specific song.
Wow.
And then another group, they actually put them in front of a keyboard and to play piano. And so what they saw is comparatively that they both actually learned very close to one another with only visual work. So visual work is very powerful. It can definitely train the mind and program those things of how to do something. Obviously, it takes you to a certain point, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's comparable to someone like ready to perform on stage. You know, if I've had people that need to speak in front of people or a large audience, we visualize it. Like, how do they feel? They do their anchor and trigger right before, and then they get on stage and they see themselves being confident, you know, standing up, like able to project their voice very clearly. And they visualize all that so that when they do eventually do it, they're much more at ease and they've already had the practice. And so visual work is pretty powerful. And yeah, before bed is great. And then in the morning, if you can do that. And that's because the mind is so open during those times. And the thinking mind is not in the way as much.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Wow, we could write a book.
Yeah.
She could write a book on each one of these questions. So that's it for today. And I really want to thank Coach Mike for sending us these questions. And again, I want to tell you guys, if you have any questions that you would like us to talk about, any issues that happen on the court that you would like us to talk about in our next podcast, please make sure you write a comment and let us know. So other than that, we will see you in our next podcast. Thank you. Bye.